YouTuber? YouTube channel?
It says 529. It says 529.
Maybe they got them synced. That'd be great.
Whole containers full, and you take a little bit
I
out
need it
and
in.
take-
All right, there we go. It is 5:30. We are going to get this show on the road, and so we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next we will have introductions. We will start with Mrs. Van Koenig.
Lori Von Koenig.
Scott Allen.
Griffin Ott.
Rachel Wade.
Greg Eating, Superintendent.
I'm Kennedy Bowman. I'm the student representative.
And Jessica Bigley.
All right, next up is to approve our agenda for this evening's meeting. Board members, any questions about the agenda? If not, I would accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on. Next, we have the approval of the consent action items, which for tonight includes minutes of our October meeting and financial statements and bills for the month of October. Any questions or comments regarding the consent items? If not, I would accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support.
And this is a roll call vote, so Mrs. Von Koenig,
Aye.
Mr. Allen,
Aye.
Mr. Ott,
Aye.
Mrs. Bigley,
Aye.
and I vote aye. All right, now on to everyone's favorite part of every school board meeting, good news about our schools. And you always get to introduce them.
You want to introduce?
No,
Feel
you go
free.
ahead, that's fine.
You can. We have Principal Ben McIntyre here tonight. We'll talk about Hollywood's Veterans Day recognition. I know that today is Veterans Day, and we had a lot of different events going on throughout the district. I actually did not attend Hollywood, so I'm excited to see this today, but I was at Stewart's today, and it was awesome. So,
Yeah, so thanks for having us. As mentioned, this is actually the 106th anniversary, right? 106 years ago was the end of World War I, where they signed the peace treaty. So we spent some time talking about that at Hollywood's Veterans Day Assembly. This is the second year that we've ran it like this. I know that all the other elementaries, and I'm assuming the middle school and the high school all do kind of fun events, but this is something that's kind of special that we do, that really kind of has a lasting impression on the students. And if you're able to attend, hopefully you were able to just get a sense of how much we really honor our veterans and their service, and wanted to kind of recognize them today. So I slapped together kind of a quick video that I'd like to show just based off today. So everything in the video is from today's assembly. So I'll stop talking and let the video do the rest. And if you were there, thank you for coming. And if you've served in any form or fashion, thank you so much for your service.
Our class worked together to write you all a letter. After we're done reading it, we will pass out each of you a copy. Your inventions.
Thank you for serving our country and making sacrifices for us. Thank you for returning cards to keep us safe in case something bad happened. We appreciate you leaving your families forever. You are so great. We are very sweet, proud of you.
Event, and thank you, Mrs. Wade, for letting us borrow your son for the TAPS performance at the end. It was great. I got a lot of thank yous, and it was just great for the community, so thank you. Any questions?
Not a question, but I told you already, it was incredible. You should be so proud of your students. They were so quiet and attentive and well-behaved as you were listing off the names of over the 50 veterans who were there and their kiddos who were there with them. All of the kids, they were just so good. Not a sound, they weren't getting squirmy. And that was a long time for them to sit, and they just did a really, really good job. So you should be very proud of them.
I am, thank you. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. McIntyre.
All right, next up on our agenda, recommendation of the superintendent, we need to talk about an audit.
Yeah, much more exciting, of course, information. So we have some representatives or representative tonight from Plant Moran who will give an overview of our financial audit. And then the board will be asked to accept the 23-24 financial audit as presented. So, Tracy.
Good evening. Tonight we have Josh Gill from Plant Moran, and he will be presenting the results of our audit. In front of you, you'll have 4 copies. One copy is the slide presentation, which he will be going through. You also have the federal awards program audit. You also have the financial statement audit, and then you have the report to the board from our auditors. Afterwards, Josh and I will be available to answer any questions.
If you can hear me, I can. There we go. Hey, good evening. Thank you for having me. Josh Gill with Plant Moran, and as Tracy mentioned, we're here to go over the results of the audit for the year. And so this is the audit for the fiscal year that ended June 30, 2024, so your 23-24 fiscal year. I just want to start with a big thank you to Tracy and the whole finance team. The professionalism and their responsiveness throughout our audit process really makes it a smooth process and great to work with. So I know it's a lot of work for them, and we really appreciate all their efforts to be here today. So I think as Tracy already mentioned, you should have those 3 deliverables, which would be the audit financial statements, that single audit report, and the end of audit letter. And then today I'm going to go over this slide deck that will kind of highlight some of those key results of the audit. So get into that. The first is going to be...
Sorry, before you start, are we supposed to be seeing slides on the screen? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yes, we're going to begin with required communications. So these are the communications under the auditing standards that we're delivering here you today as the board and those charged with governance. So the first is kind of the most important paragraph here, that Plant Moran has issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on the audit financial statements. So that's the highest level of assurance that we can provide on these financial statements. The financial statements are the responsibility of management, and then Plant Moran is responsible for rendering an opinion on those audited financial statements. What doesn't show here, but also want to mention, is that as part of that, we did the single audit. So that's our compliance audit over the federal expenditures and the schedule of expenditure of federal awards. So there was $2.7 million of federal expenditures incurred by the district this year. So as part of that, we have to audit what we call the major program each year. And so this year, the major program was the child nutrition cluster. And that was the major program that we audited for compliance, and no issues to report there. Clean opinion on that single audit as well. As part of our audit scope, we also do test expenditures on the 2023 bond fund, as well as expenditures on the district sinking fund to make sure there's compliance of those expenditures under the school code, and no issues identified in that testing as well. So we have conducted our audit under the plan, scope, and timing of our initial communication letter, pre-audit letter that was dated to the board on July 25th. The significant accounting policies of the district are described in footnote 2 to the financial statements. There were no significant transactions that have been recognized in a different period than when the transactions occurred. The financial statements do include significant accounting estimate, and that estimate relates to the district's share of the MIPSR's pension plan and OPEB liability, and the OPEB is now OPEB asset. So the district has the proportionate share of that state's pension plan liability. So that is an estimate that is included in these financial statements, and that's in the government-wide financial statements under that full accrual accounting. And then we have deemed that the disclosures in the financial statements are all neutral, consistent, and clear with accounting standards. We have no difficulties encountering performing the audit, no disagreements with management. We did not detect any misstatements as a result of our audit procedures, and then there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control report. And no other significant findings or issues, so really that clean audit this year. No fraud or illegal acts were identified as well during our audit. Management did provide us with a letter that they signed and dated on October 1, 2024, essentially confirming that they provide us full and accurate information in order to complete our audit. And then we're not aware of any consultations that management has had with other independent accountants as part of the audit. So those are all the communications. Next, going to just highlight some of the numbers now. And we're going to focus the slides here on the general fund, so the primary operating fund for the school district. The first slide here is going to be the balance sheet. So this is your balance sheet as of June 30, 2024, so as of that fiscal year end. On the left side, we have assets, total assets of $11.4 million at year end, about a $2 million increase from the prior year. Most of this increase is in your cash and investment balances. Assets are made up of about 46% is going to be cash and investments, about $5.2 million at June 30. Receivables, about 51%, $5.7 million. This is primarily the state aid payments for the 23-24 fiscal year that are received in July and August, so after year end, but are receivable as of June 30. On the liability side, $5 million in total liabilities at June 30. The largest bucket here is going to be about $3.4 million, 68% is made up of accrued payroll. And this is going to be the contracts for teachers that have earned all of their contract by June 30, but are paid out in July and August after the year end. The next largest is about $1.1 million of unearned revenue. And so this would be categorical state grants or federal grants where you've received the funds but haven't incurred those expenditures for the required purposes of that grant. So those will be recognized as revenue as you expend it for the grant purposes. The next slide is now we're looking at the revenue and other financing sources of the general fund. On this one now we have on the left side 2024 amounts, and then we have a comparative on the right of 2023. So you can see kind of the change from the prior year. So total revenue in the general fund was $37.9 million for fiscal year 24, increase of about $2.4 million from the prior year. The largest revenue source is going to be from your state source revenues, so the state aid payments, about 78% of your total general fund revenue, nearly $30 million from the state source. Then at 15%, about $5.5 million of local source revenue from property taxes, and then about $1.9 million is going to be federal award grants. The next slide is now we're looking at expenditures for the general fund. Again, we have 2024 on the left side and then a comparative 2023 on the right side. So total expenditures for the general fund for the fiscal year was $36.5 million. The graph here is showing the expenditures by their function code. So 64% of expenditures, $23.2 million, were instruction-related expenditures, and then 32%, about $11.7 million, were support service expenditures. Also important to note that that support amount includes support directly for the students in the classroom. So about $4.7 million of that total support is really directly attributable to support for students in the classroom. You can see that those kind of ratios of the expenditures by function code are relatively consistent from last year, and no big changes in your expenditures. If we were to kind of think about the makeup of these total expenditures by their object codes, so the nature of the expenditures, about 80% of those total expenditures would be salary and wage and benefit of expenses. So the next slide, now we're looking at the general fund balance history. This shows the last 5 years. But if we combine the results from that revenue slide and then the expenditures slide, there is an increase in your fund balance of $1.3 million for the fiscal year. So that general fund balance has increased to about $6.3 million as of June 30. It also does show your state aid membership counts over those past 5 years, which is the primary driver of the state aid received. So you can see there was just a 9-student decrease from the prior year on that student count. And then the foundation allowance, so that's going to be the per pupil funding, was $9,608 for fiscal year 24. And that amount is expected to remain consistent for fiscal year 25, so there's no increase in that foundation allowance expected for next year. And then the last slide I have here is looking at the general fund balance as a percentage of your total expenditures, and then it compares it to the state averages. So in terms of the state averages, it's going to only show you 2023 based off of the data. The 2024 data is still coming in from all the districts around the state. But you can see, kind of looking at this trends over the past 5 years, that Lakeshore has been relatively consistent with that state average. Last year did dip a little bit, but with that growth in general fund balance, you're now at 17.4% as of June 30, 24, and kind of a similar trend that we'd expect the state average to be following. And the last slide here, I do include the contact information. Matt Kelly is the partner on our engagement, and his contact information is there, so any questions are welcome to reach out to him as well. But again, a thank you to being able to present here today and a clean audit, and again, thanks to Tracy for all her hard work during this audit process.
Thank you, Josh. I also want to thank Pam Griffendorf, as her program was the program tested for the federal award, so I want to also thank Pam. One thing to keep in mind, as you can see, our fund balance went from 13.9% to 17.4%. We do have a reserve by the board for buses. So we knew buses were coming. That'll be over $350,000. So some of that fund balance has already been spent. In addition, at the end of August, we received some MIPSers money that we did not know we would receive. Again, that money needs to be spent on retirement. So even though it looks great that we have 1.3, which we can be very happy for, most of that money is already earmarked for specific programs and items.
Thank you, because that was the question that I had just written down to ask you, so thank you. Any other questions, board members, for Tracy or Josh?
Tracy, so looking at the fund balance as a percentage to the total expenditures, the state average seems to be increasing. Is that due to all the extra funds that schools are holding on to and trying to get rid of? Because our balance seems to stay pretty consistent where we'd like it, but I just see the big difference there.
A lot of it is the ESSER funds, and the ESSER funds have to be spent by the end of this calendar year. We spent all of ours at the end of June 30th, so ours is totally spent.
So we expect that
We expect the state average to go down.
Okay.
And just a clarification, that $6 million that we have in fund balance, that gets eaten up by payroll from June 30th on until we get our state aid in, what, this time of year or so?
In October, correct. So the fund balance, you hope at least covers payroll for the summer, plus any expenditures, which includes 2 payrolls in September. So it's always important to watch that fund balance and to keep the fund balance at a certain level. The board policy is 15%. Again, we are over it right now, but a lot of it is earmarked and was also done through great planning through the board and in conjunction with the LEA, the union, as we added staff, and we knew that we wanted to keep them. So we deferred money and we held money back so that once ESSER is gone, we can still afford those positions.
I'm sure there's a lot of districts that are not in the position that we're in at this point with those continual costs.
We see those in the headlines.
Great job, Tracy, thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy or Josh, are there anything that you guys would want to point out that the board might want to review out of these documents at all, either?
Just again, with the federal awards, it's always important to know where we're getting money from our federal government, which would be in the federal compliance, I believe, page 10 and 11, which shows the 2.7 million. That will go down as the ESSER funds, as I've mentioned, have been fully expended. That was about $1 million, if I'm not mistaken. So that number will come down. We will still need a federal audit, as the threshold is $750,000. I wish that could be raised. And as part of their procedures this year, they actually surprised us and tested the ESSER funds in addition. So there was some surprise program testing. There is a page on in the federal compliance that's a really good report card. I believe it's on page 12, maybe 13, if I could look real quick. And it's this statement that talks about if we have any findings, what our program that was tested.
It's the back page.
Page 10.
Yeah.
Page 10. So that's a really good snapshot of what happened during the fiscal year in terms of our audit. I will be adding that to the transparency page, hopefully within the next week or two, as I think that's very important that you can see there were no problems noted and everything was, again, the unqualified or clean opinion.
Any other questions or comments? I know the Finance and Facilities Committee went through this in quite a bit more detail. And we were very, very pleased with the results and the very complimentary things that the auditors had to say about Tracy and her team. So thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Right, we will need to approve,
Accept the.
thank you, accepting the audit as presented. I would accept a motion,
So moved.
Support.
and this is a roll call vote. So Mrs. Von Koenig,
Aye.
Mr. Allen,
Aye.
Mr. Ott.
Aye.
Mrs. Bigley,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Moving on to the superintendent's informational report.
Great. So the new person in the room sitting to my left is Kennedy Bowman. And Kennedy is our new student representative to the school board. I'm really excited that she is part of our board now. And As you kind of noticed, she's not a voting member of the board, but is more of a person to provide some feedback to the board as we have meetings and then have also committee work and kind of some work behind the scenes as well. Kenan, do you want to say anything at all?
I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad to be on the board.
Awesome. Thank you. We have a upcoming workshop with the board in early December, and we'll kind of have some good discussion as kind of what that role will kind of unfold with. So that's kind of the idea. Natalie Maserata, our Director of Curriculum Instruction, and I had the opportunity to join several teachers in our district and tour Stewart's Literacy Intervention Time. Over the last month, it was great to see our teachers and students in action as they worked hard on improving their literacy skills. After the walkthrough, the entire group of teachers had a meeting to discuss what they saw and learned, and it was really fun to listen to that discussion. And we have a lot of work to do, I know, but also a lot of people doing a lot of work right now. So I know our teachers are really tired at the elementary level, so that's one of those areas that we keep talking about as a board of like making sure we pay attention to that group. On Thursday, October 24th, the district went into a lockdown at all buildings due to a report of a potential threat. This report was later deemed to be fake. There have been several such incidents over the past few years at schools and other venues, with over 50 happening on the same day as ours was reported. This type of incident is called swatting, which is an act of deceiving an emergency service into sending police or emergency personnel to a location, essentially trying to create chaos. We are thankful that this was only a perceived threat and not a situation that included actual weapons or violence. However, the incident definitely affected the entire community. Overall, we are pleased with the response from our administration team, staff, and students. We are so thankful for our partnership with Lincoln Township Police and their dedication to the safety and security of our community. Our administration team has done a full debriefing on the incident and will be using our learning to make some improvements over that situation and future situations that should they arise. And finally, I'd like to congratulate Lakeshore High School Marching Band for winning the MCBA Division IV state title. Mr. Holtgren, who's in the room, and I were able to attend and watch their amazing performance. The band won, listen to this, Best Music, Best Visual, Best Color Guard, Best General Effect, and was also declared the overall state champion in their division. From my vantage point, and I am not biased when I say this, they easily sounded the best and had the cleanest performance of all the bands we watched. And for those interested, I suggest checking out the latest Looking Inside Lakeshore Schools podcast that highlights this accomplishment. And you can find a link on our website or on our Facebook page to that. I believe the new website today rolled out with their performance. Is that right, Mrs. Toothman? All right, new website rolled out today. Just a revamp of our current material. And on it is the performance of the state championship. So that's super fun too.
And not that I'm biased either, but
Yes, you are biased.
we were 3 full points ahead of all the rest of the competition.
And apparently that's a lot. It's not like a three-pointer in basketball, so that's a lot.
Excellent.
go.
Thank
That's
you for that report.
yes,
That was
my
a great way to
pleasure.
end it. Moving on to Board of Education reports. First up is our Student Success Committee. Mrs. Bigley, would you please read that report?
Yes, the Student Success Committee met on Tuesday, October 29th. Present at the meeting were Jason Beckrow, Bill Scaletta, Greg Eating, Natalie Maserata, Jaron Blood, and myself. The committee conducted interviews with 3 Lakeshore seniors who applied to be the student representative on the school board.
Thank you very much. The Culture and Leadership Committee. Mrs. Von Koenig, would you please read that report?
I'm sorry, I'm not there.
Sorry, page 32.
Thank you. I was on policy. Did you mean policy?
No.
Nope. No, because policy hasn't met.
Mine, what's going on?
I have this, which is much easier.
Yeah. This is what it says on 32. It's policy. See?
That's weird.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay. The Culture and Leadership Committee met on Friday, November 1st. Present at the meeting were Bill Scaletta, Susan Toothman, Greg Eating, and myself. Susan Toothman updated the committee on the progress of the RAV program, the current wellness challenge, the upcoming staff survey, and some staff recognition highlights. This includes having 2 staff members, Elena Kinney and Amy Perkins, being awarded Moody on the Market Bold Women of Business Award. Elizabeth Meath Meath, the Lakeshore Excellence Foundation Vice Chair of Marketing, also won this award.
That's awesome. All right. Last report is Facilities and Finance. Mr. Ott, would you please share that?
On Friday, November the 8th, the Facilities and Finance Committee met, consisting of Rachel Wade, myself, Lori Von Koenig, Greg Eating, Tracy Althouse, and guests from Plant Moran were Matt Kelly and Kristen Kaiser. Items discussed, but not limited to, include the following. Matt and Kristen went over this year's audit results with the committee, and the audit presentation, which we just had, will be at the meeting. Highlights from the audit include an unqualified or clean opinion, as well as no findings or no material misstatements. Tracy presented the monthly financials with no items of concern noted, as well as a brief summary of the bond bid package number 3 for the board to approve. On a side note, the Community Connections Committee is meeting tomorrow for their monthly meeting. This will be reported at the December meeting.
All right, next up on the agenda is the bond bid approval request for package number 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we have David Innes from Owen Ames Kimball OAK is here to briefly go over the 8 bids as part of the bid package number 3. I did not brief David on a big presentation tonight, so I think you can kind of look at what are the items that are on the list there, and maybe if there are any questions from the board that we could kind of go over. You can also maybe go over what the bids, how the bid packages went too, and we had pretty good traction on our bids this year, right?
Yes, we did. So I guess just to start, just kind of wanting to read the recommended motion. I know you've kind of reviewed this previously in your packet there, but just I move that Owen Ames Kimball be authorized to issue notice of pending awards in the amount indicated to the contractors and suppliers listed below, pending confirmation that all requirements of the contract documents have been met. Furthermore, that upon receipt by Owen Ames Kimball Co. of appropriate documentation, contracts be awarded to these contractors and suppliers by Lakeshore Public Schools. So again, to kind of pinpoint to what Greg said there, we had a lot of good coverage. Our bid categories had multiple bidders in all of them. We had a really good kind of local preference on that too. I guess one positive thing to note for Lakeshore is out of our 8 bid categories, we are asking to award 4 of them that are local, close to the district. So we always like to do that as far as the community is concerned. So I guess with that, I'd like to just kind of open it up to questions, comments.
Can you give us a quick overview of what this work is going to be doing in this part of the bond?
Sure. So this bid package is going to encompass the high school, the middle school, and a little bit at the transportation building. Here at the high school, we're doing a full fire alarm upgrade to the entire building. Also making a couple of the stairwells in the gymnasium more safe with some better egress and security. Also redoing the facade of the metal panels there. Right now, they're currently the precast panels that you may see at the north elevation of the building here. And then also boiler upgrades here at the high school. Moving over to the middle school, boiler upgrades there as well, along with some stairwell work. Again, drinking fountain, partition wall, some ADA elements, as well as replacing flush valves and internal components of all the plumbing accessories there. And then at the transportation building, just doing some mechanical upgrades for heat and water heaters. So a little more kind of back of house things that are very obviously important for the students and staff, keeping everybody comfortable and safe. So that's kind of the majority of what we're doing in this package.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I would accept a motion to approve everything that he just read.
Thank you.
So moved.
Support.
Anybody? I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at you like
Oh.
specifically because I wanted you to. I just, this is a roll call vote. So Mrs. Von Koenig?
Aye.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mr. Ott?
Aye.
Mrs. Bigley?
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, you might as well just keep going, Greg.
Yeah, sorry. This is one of those items that we talked about, I think every year I've been here, is a relinquishing of federal funds. So again, this fiscal year, we will not be applying for federal funds for Section Title 3, Part A of the English language learner, or English learners, and will relinquish these funds. This is always a situation where taking the funds and having to go through the process of managing those funds with what we do with them does not equate to us spending the funds. It's almost like we have to pay more for using the funds than we do in actually using the funds, if that makes sense. So it's, we do have we are slowly improving our ELL program, and this does not hinder that in any way. I think accepting it might actually hinder it in this case. So that's why we make this choice.
Any questions? If not, I would accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support.
And this is another roll call vote, so Mrs. Von Koenig.
Aye.
Mr. Allen.
Aye.
Mr. Ott.
Aye.
Mrs. Bigley.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
And then the next recommendation is an overnight trip, AP US History, APUSH, Boston trip. AP US History teacher Amy Perkins is requesting approval for about 34 students to travel to the historical city of Boston from April 23rd to the 27th, 2025. Their itinerary is included in your packet.
Any questions?
It just looks like a very fun itinerary of seeing a ton of history. So I know I like history. This looks like a very fun trip.
And I always appreciate it that it's November and the trip's not till April and she's asking for approval now. I love being on top of it. All right, if there are no questions, I would accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
And then public comment.
Yeah.
I think we're down to public comment
Yep, we
time.
had, I don't see Monique Yoder here for public comment, but I do see Sandra Hayes. Do I need to read you the rules about not going over 5 minutes?
No, thank you. Good evening. My name is Sandy Hayes, and I am the current chairperson of the Lakeshore Band Parents, Inc., 501c3 nonprofit organization. I am here this evening to express our deep gratitude to the Board of Education, the school administration, and the teaching staff who continue to support our Lakeshore Band program, grades 5 through 12. As I am sure you are aware, and Mr. Eating has already so eloquently said, the high school marching band competed in the state finals competition on November 2nd and are the MCBA District 4 state champions. This is the 10th state championship that they have won since they have begun to compete at the state level. This is a significant undertaking for these directors and students, and without the support of the school district leadership, much of their success would not be possible. Our band program is growing rapidly in numbers with a very large incoming 5th grade group. This speaks well of our directors and the elementary teaching staff who support this activity. A large majority of last year's 5th graders continued into the 6th grade band this year, which again reflects on the support that they are receiving not only from their parents, but also from Lakeshore staff. We just wanted you all to know that we recognize and greatly appreciate all of the support our band program receives. It would not be possible to do what we do without that support. Go band.
I would also add as an aside that there were 17 seniors who graduated from the band last year, and at least 10 of them were in Detroit on Saturday for the championship, and came to the parking lot where the band was after to celebrate. And of those 10, more than half of them did not have younger siblings. So it's not like they were there because their parents were there and they were watching their younger siblings. They were there simply because this is something that was that important to them. And again, that speaks to championship or not, that speaks to the culture of the program, which is, I think, what all of us are most proud of.
Agreed.
Sue, did we have anybody else sign up for public comment?
Nope, he's not here tonight either, so
All right.
we're all set.
Then we are done. So I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. Have a good night.